Hello, everyone, and a special hello to all the Special Olympians being honored this evening. I'm so sorry I can't be with you tonight. I loved your video inviting me, and I wish I could be there in person to pay homage to all your accomplishments. However, I couldn't completely miss the chance to take a moment to share some thoughts with all of you. You know, last week was a big deal for me playing my last NBA game. It presented a moment to pause and reflect on what I've learned throughout my basketball career. The lesson I cherish the most is how important it is to love what you do. If you love what you do and it's making you happy, all the hard work and perseverance will pay off. When you know you're truly giving it your all, there is no greater feeling in the world. I once had a guidance counselor tell me that I shouldn't play basketball, that it would never amount to anything for me. And you know what? Much to your surprise, I took that counselor's advice. I took it and I used it to be the best basketball player I could be. His negativity towards me made me stronger. You can't stop people from trying to limit your dreams, but you can stop it from becoming a reality. Your dreams are up to you. I encourage you to always be curious, always seek out things you love, and always work hard once you find it. So with that, I'll let you carry on with your evening. I hope you enjoy your special night. Please know I'm thinking of you, supporting you, and encouraging you always. Peace.
And just like that, here we are with episode 10 of Deep from Three. I'm Devin Withers. I'm alongside Isaiah Hansen, alongside Gary Sunberger. That's the first time I'm seeing that clip from start to finish, and that's powerful stuff, man. I'm a diehard Lakers fan, and it's one of hundreds of clips you'll probably find of Kobe Bryant. As always, inspirational, motivational. That's really special. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. Rest in peace, Mamba.
Yes.
I'm inspired after that message. Thank you, Isaiah, for playing that. I'm. Let's do what we love. Let's have a good. Wow, I can't speak. Let's have a good show. I'm not emotional. Jeez.
You understand there would be no deep takes from three if it wasn't for Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant is who got me into the NBA originally. Like, there's no, I was always a Knicks fan growing up, but the Lakers are always my second favorite team. If you look at my Facebook like teams, you'll see the Lakers right there because of Kobe, man. Until Kobe retired, I was a Lakers fan, man. So, of course, rest in peace, Mamba, and then of course the rest of the passengers up in the corner, especially his daughter Gianna. I didn't mean to, start the show all emotional and everything, but we had to do it, man. So.
Yeah.
Respect. We got to give respect where it's due.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, we got a great show, and Gary put it best. We're gonna do what we love doing, and we're 10 episodes in now, and let's make this one as great as the last one, and as one of the best that we've had to date. We got a great show for everybody. We've been off for about a week or so. And during that time, we saw some all-star selections. We saw the media go crazy over a couple of the starting selections because now we're back to fan voting, and now we're back to, all of this weight into, what the people want to see during the all-star game. So we're going to start there. We're going to talk about the biggest surprises. So, Isaiah, you start with this one. What was one of the biggest surprises? Let me run it through. In the Eastern Conference, they named the starters as Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Joel Embiid, Trae Young, and DeMar DeRozan. And in the West, you got LeBron James, Nikola Jokic, Andrew Wiggins, Steph Curry, and Ja Moran. You guys are already grinning. I don't know what it could possibly be about.
No, nothing. I got nothing to say ever. No, I don't have an opinion. Not at all.
One of those guys is not like the other, right? Okay, but I'm not gonna be the one to do it. I want to save that for Gary. Gary's the one that's been on that topic. The rest of these guys, there's no real surprise, I would say, because these were all talented players, and any of them could have been an all-star starter in any given season. But the guy that stood out for me in terms of how much he's grown this year is Ja Morant. You're talking about in a Western Conference that contains Damian Lillard, Luka Doncic, Devin Booker, Chris Paul, so many guys that, I don't know about Damian Lillard, but we expect to see a lot of those guys in the All-Star game. And Ja Morant was able to go right alongside Steph Curry and start the backcourt. and it's well deserved. The Grizzlies are 35-17, and aside from maybe the Bucks, I don't know if there's a team that one player has had such an effect on the entire, like the record. Like if you take Ja Morant off the Grizzlies, what are they? We've seen it a couple times this year. They're led by Jarrett Jackson, and that's about it, right?
Desmond Bane.
Desmond Bane. I mean, these are solid guys, but we're
you're right. You're right.
We're talking about below the Lakers, right? So, Ja Morant, man, he stepped up. He's averaging 26 points per game this year, as opposed to 19 last year. His numbers up, his rebounding numbers are up, his assisting numbers are down. But when you're doing all those scoring, of course, things are gonna have to scale back a little bit. Ja Morant is doing all of that, everything. You got people comparing him to Michael Jordan, which I'm not going to go that far, but he deserves all the type of praise that he's getting right now. And not only that, early on in the year, we were talking about that draft with Zion and RJ Barrett. And, I don't think there's any question at this juncture right now, if we were to redo that draft, who goes first? It's Ja Morant, if we knew what we know now, right? So, Ja Morant, for me, it's not a surprise, but the rise to where he's gotten so fast and over who he's starting, I gotta go with Ja Morant.
Yeah, and that's a good one. I mean, I will say this. I'm glad that we're back to an Eastern versus Western. I wasn't really a big fan of these, when LeBron James was drafting against Kevin Durant, and Kevin Durant couldn't even play in the game. Then the next year we get LeBron James and Giannis, and it's like Giannis doesn't even know how to draft a team around him. So, I mean, I like this aspect of East versus West, and Ja Morant, you're right back up there in superstardom. Gary, I'm hesitant to give you the floor right here. I'm afraid of what you might do to Andrew Wiggins, but I'll give the floor to you anyways.
All right. I mean, you spoiled it. We all spoiled it. We knew it was coming. Andrew Wiggins. WTF is the first thing that you think of when you look at it. You can go to my Twitter and see my instant reaction when that happened. Perplexed is a word to use, describing what I was feeling at the time. Basically what happened is the Golden State Warriors are marketing geniuses. Steph Curry, Draymond Green, they were all talking about Andrew Wiggins around the time that they were voting for All-Stars, trying to give him the credit. The Golden State Warriors even reached out to K-pop star Bam Bam, not out of bio, but Bam Bam, from the group GOT7. I've never heard of them. That's probably like, I'm going to get slandered on K-pop Twitter for that. But it was the hashtag Andrew Wiggins, hashtag NBA All-Star was the #1 trending tweet in the entire country of Thailand. It had 37,000 retweets, the tweet specifically from Bam Bam, 69,000 likes, nice, 3K replies. He also got 46 player votes, which I think is a little crazy considering, just the amount of talent around the league, especially considering Draymond is on the same team as him. He's averaging 18 points, 4 rebounds. That led me to the question of what were the worst All-Star starters of all time. Of course, you're going to look at players that have played in the All-Star game, but I'm talking about guys who were voted in by the fans. No particular order, except I could give you, at the end, I'll tell you the worst. Don't worry. Yao Ming in, I believe it was 2010, 10 points, 5 rebounds, a block and a half. Only played 5 games, All-Star starter in the West. Now, that's ridiculous, other than the fact that you think, he's got an entire country behind the guy. The entirety of China basically voted for Yao Ming. Even though he only played 5 games that year, he was able to start. 1994, you've got B.J. Armstrong, and this is coming right after MJ retired. So you've got, every Bulls fan, every bandwagon fan in the NBA is trying to get somebody on the Bulls in the All-Star game. He averaged 15 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists that game. We got Allen Iverson in 2010. I actually didn't write the year down here. I'm really bad at my job. He played 3 games this season. He was his last year as an All-Star. Wasn't even playing. He was waived by the team the year he gets the start in the All-Star game. He was second behind Dwayne Wade in All-Star voting for guards in the East. He averaged 12 and 3 in 3 games. And, I'm not going to give any discredit to Kobe Bryant, even though his 13, 4 and 6 wasn't an incredible stat line, but he was injured during the season. That's more of a comment on the fans voting more than anything. Kobe Bryant, obviously incredible player, one of the GOATs. He didn't play until December 8th that year, only played 6 games, voted in the starter in the All-Star game. But, the worst starter of all time, it's not Andrew Wiggins, as much as my instant reaction on Twitter would have showed. It's actually in 1955, Dick McGuire averaged 7 points, 5 assists for the New York Knicks. You got 34% from the field. That's it. I don't really have anything else to say about that other than a man averaged 7 points and 5 assists, made a starter in the All-Star game. Now, of course, Andrew Wiggins is doing better than that. I'm not going to call him the worst starter of all time, but it surprised the hell out of me, honestly, to see his name pop up. It's like one of these things is not like the other. Find the thing that doesn't match the rest of them. You see Andrew Wiggins there, and it's like when somebody is like, "Oh, we got McDonald's, Burger King, and Arby's," and you're like, one of those is not good. So, Andrew Wiggins, my biggest surprise, and that's really it. I can't see a reason why, other than the fact that he doesn't average as many points as Andrew Wiggins, why Draymond Green isn't in that slot, why Rudy Gobert isn't in that slot, Karl Anthony Towns, Paul George. I mean, these are just players I'm just throwing out there that have a better case than Andrew Wiggins, at least to start. But yeah, Andrew Wiggins, all-star starter? Probably not, but here he is.
Yeah, and another name you could have added on to that list too is Luka. I mean,
yes.
I mean, you have these players that, there's some players that aren't having, career best years, but when we're talking about pure popularity and especially, the overseas love that Luka gets, I'm surprised that a fan vote put Andrew Wiggins in the top 5 in the Western Conference. I saw earlier today, he ended up being that number 5 slot in the player voting and number 6 in the media voting. So media didn't vote him in. But with the vote and the way that it's structured right now, it's weighted towards what the fans want. It sort of brings me back to, I forget if it was last year, if it was the year before, when fans were voting and it was like Alex Caruso was about to get himself an all-star nomination. Zaza, you had Taco Fall was about to make it from the Boston Celtics at the time. And at some point you just look at it and you're like, wow, as an NBA community, like we have to do better, but players are going to do. It's funny that you talked about Bam Bam too, because this morning I was doing some research into why he got so much love. And I literally wrote it down, 9.6 million followers for the K-pop star, and as of this morning it was 37.7 retweets and 72,000 likes on Twitter. It's crazy what the media can do and how it can alter the way that the All-Star game, which has been important in years past, it might have died off a little bit in recent years, but it's surprising to see how Andrew Wiggins has been named a starter over the powerhouses that Gary has named.
It's that K-pop love, I'm telling you. All he needed was one tweet, and the thing with those votes is that because it was they're liking, retweeting all of it. Some of those counted as 2 votes. Yeah. So Andrew Wiggins from that one tweet alone gets like 400,000 votes.
Yeah,
that's it. I mean, and that's all you need, really. Just one guy, one popular dude with 10 million? You said 9.7 million Twitter followers?
Yeah, 9.6 million. Yeah.
I never watched basketball, but I'm going to vote this guy.
Yeah. And Gary makes a good point too about some of the worst starters of all time, dating it all the way back to the 1950s. Isaiah knows that.
That was a little extra.
Yeah,
I do my research, bro. I do my research. Don't hate. I had time.
Yeah, we'll take
putting the time, putting the effort.
Yep. But I'll tell you guys what was a surprise for me. And I think this player is having an all-star caliber season, but it's more disrespect to a different player because of it. And I'm looking at Trae Young. And don't get me wrong, Trae Young, generational player. Comparing him to the last time in which he has started, the All-Star game just 2 years ago, his numbers are down. He's averaging 27.7 points. He's shooting 37.6 from three-point range. But, you got a guy like Zach Levine who has now been snubbed not just once, but twice. He should have been All-Star starter last season, but got snubbed from that. And it's funny because for Zach Levine, at least, we look at the past and why he hasn't been elected into the All-Star game. It's simply because his teams haven't been very good in the past, right? And now you get him on the Chicago Bulls, who sit with a 31-18 record, and he plays along DeMar DeRozan and is still shooting very, very well. And then I'm going ahead and I'm looking at Trae Young. I'm looking at the Atlanta Hawks. They're going to be lucky at this point to get themselves into the play-in tournament. I mean, when did this become all about? I mean, it's not a team accolade. That's not how we should be voting guys in. But Zach Levine's having a great year, so I probably would have put Zach Levine in instead of Trae Young into that one backcourt spot. So that's what was interesting to me. I think Trae Young, like I said, is having a very, very good season. He deserves his all-star spot. But at the same time, I don't think this is his best year in comparison to other years. And we also have to look at the fact that Zach Levine is playing alongside DeMar DeRozan, who's, shooting the ball very well. DeMar DeRozan's an all-star starter in the Eastern Conference for a reason. And then we go ahead and we look at Trae Young, who doesn't really play alongside a lot of shooters. I mean, John Collins is the next man up when it comes to the scoring category, and Trae Young is still putting up very, very identical numbers to Zach Levine. So you could make the case that Trae Young should have actually been snubbed. I'm sure if he was snubbed, the Eastern Conference would be a riot right now, but I would personally rather have Zach Levine in that starting five, but that's just my perspective.
It's interesting you bring up Trae Young in the respect of the Hawks were not doing well up until a couple of weeks, like about a week ago, when the Hawks, they've been rolling a little bit. They're on a hot streak. They got one of the best net ratings in the NBA the last 10 days. But when the All-Star vote happened, the team was not like solid. They were doing okay. They're a couple of games under 500. They weren't incredible. I believe at the time he was voted in, they were 12th in the Eastern Conference. They're up to about 9th or I think they're 8th now.
They're 10. So, they're 10 right now.
They're 10 right now.
Yeah.
So
season.
I think you make a great point with Levine. I would like to hear of Isaiah's takes on his on Trae Young in general, just because I don't think we've ever really talked about him all that much. But yeah, Trae Young, kind of surprising in regards to Levine.
It's probably intentional on why Isaiah doesn't want to talk about Trae Young.
I'll stop. I'm gonna stop slandering my man. I apologize.
Yeah. I mean, Dev is right. Zach Levine should have started over Trae Young. I don't even really need to see numbers. All I know is that they're near the bottom. They're even under my Knicks in terms of and I know it's not a team voting thing. That's why I feel like, in another world, I would have brought up Russell Westbrook and why he should be in the All-Star this year. But I agree. I'm not going to go too in depth with Trae Young because, why should I anyway? He did a very bad thing to my team last year. So I agree. Zach Levine, he got snubbed. He should be starting. I understand he's not really a point guard, but who cares? I mean, look at what this positional voting is doing for the West. You got Andrew Wiggins in there. Could have put Luka. Anyway, yeah, that's it.
Could have put Rudy. I don't think Luka really counted as a forward, even though he
didn't. The guard.
He didn't.
So you get 2 backcourt spots and you get 3 front court. You can stack it up however you want. Luka, I believe, was classified as a backcourt member. So if you're putting Luka in there, you got to take out either Steph Curry or you're taking out John Morant. And I guess you're not going to take out Steph Curry. So now you're picking apples and oranges when it comes to John Morant versus Luka Doncic this year.
Both solid fruits.
Yeah, absolutely. But as we sort of progress, we get closer to this All-Star game. We talked about guys that could have potentially been snubbed. I brought up Zach Levine. We've brought up other names such as Rudy Gobert, Cat, Luka Doncic. We want to go through and we want to talk about one guy from the Eastern Conference and one guy from the Western Conference that has to be taken as a reserve. A huge list of guys, really promising players. So this time we'll start with Gary. Gary, walk me through. If you get one pick from the Eastern Conference as a reserve, you get one pick from the Western Conference as a reserve. Who are you taking?
Well, on this podcast, we do like to up our favorite teams. So I'm going to have to give my Eastern Conference spot to Jimmy Butler. Although he has not played the amount of games as a lot of players have, 33. It's a little bit less. He doesn't actually even show up on NBA.com's leaderboards due to the lack of games played. Over the last 4 games, he's averaging 26, 9, and 9, 2.5 steals a game on over 50% shooting. He's averaging 22, 6, and 6 on the season. I mean, a lot of the Heat's success is a credit to Eric Spoelstra, Coach of the Year, in my opinion. Not biased at all. But yeah, Jimmy Butler is just the heart and soul of that Miami Heat team. They're the number 1 seed in the East. I haven't talked about that enough either. But yeah, you have to have at least one All-Star from the number 1 seed in the NBA. It's not fair to any team like the Phoenix Suns being the number 1 seed in the West and not having an all-star starter is a little silly if you think about it too hard, which is why my Western player is also Devin Booker. Devin Booker, 25, 5.5, 4.4 on the year. He's averaging 31 points a game since the Raptors mascot taunted him during warmups. They're 40-9, and they're on a 10-game win streak. I mean, that's enough said, man. Devin Booker is an elite shot maker. He's got one of the highest 3-point shots ratings or percentages of his career. I believe only 1 year he's had a better year shooting. He's playing the best defense of his entire career. And his numbers in the clutch, he's 19 for 29, 6 assists, plus 56, plus minus, and 54 points in 53 minutes. Devin Booker is a bona fide superstar. And question for you guys, is Devin Booker becoming the best shooting guard in the NBA? Discuss.
I mean, you're gonna put him above Clay though, when Clay's at 100%.
No, is Clay at 100% right now?
Not really.
I mean, yeah, honestly, yeah, I would put him over Clay right now. And I'm saying Clay is a great defender. Of course, you know, he is the 3-and-D guy. But until I see the Warriors do something in the playoffs and Klay Thompson do his Klay Thompson thing, he's having a little bit of a hard time shooting on the road at the moment. Devin Booker is just consistent every night, 31 a game. He is the leading scorer on this Suns team. And I know a lot of people want to throw Chris Paul in the MVP discussion, and rightfully so. I don't think that gives enough credit to how good Devin Booker has been this year, last year, and just his ascension as a superstar in this league.
Yeah, the only other player I'd probably throw when we're talking about pure shooting in comparison for shooting guards, I'm probably throwing James Harden in that same category.
Yeah, and that's who he's got to overcome.
Yeah, but it's real close. You know what I mean? I'm a huge Devin Booker fan too. He's one of my favorite players in the NBA. And yeah, it's interesting that you bring up Booker. I think he's one of my top picks as well. And you make a good point that I'm going to address in a few minutes after I let Isaiah take the floor about these top teams, over the Eastern and Western Conference don't even have any starters in the All-Star game. Jimmy Butler obviously deserves his spot on the All-Star team. He himself missed a little bit of time, and, he's been able to take over, with the absence of Kyle Lowry in the last couple of weeks. Jimmy Butler is actually missing for today's game with an ankle injury, I believe, against the Boston Celtics. So, yeah, it's definitely, really solid picks. Isaiah, what are you sort of looking at when you're talking about the Eastern and Western Conference this year?
So, guys, you're not going to believe this, right? I had a whole RJ Barrett argument, indisputable with undeniable facts, but unfortunately I misplaced it. So I don't want to come into this with you could kind of take Gary's argument for Jimmy Butler and just copy and paste it and just do your imagination here. But that's not where I'm going to go. I was tempted. That's not where I'm going to go.
Your ability to bring up RJ Barrett every single podcast is unmatched. Dude. You might as well.
The dog ate my notes, okay? But I promise you would have both been convinced, okay? So the guy I'm going with is the guy that I expect to, in the end, be an NBA All-Star starter, though Jimmy Butler will give a little bit of credence because, it looks like Kevin Durant's going to need to be replaced. So I do think this guy is going to be his replacement, and that is Jason Tatum. Okay, Jason Tatum. I mean, he's not on the greatest fit team between him and Jaylen Brown. I can honestly make an argument for either of the guys, but Jason Tatum gets a little bit of an edge. He's averaging 26 points per game, back-to-back seasons, nearly shooting 50% from the field. His 3-point isn't the greatest, but he's averaging 26, 8, and 4. And that's even with all the chemistry issues and all the stuff that's going on in Celtics. I mean, again, this is an individual accomplishment. Tatum is, I mean, he should be regarded a lot higher than he is. I think it's just that, you're not winning a lot of games and you're not really a championship threat. You're not going to get that kind of credit. But in a lot of different other organizations, Jason Tatum would be the difference maker for these guys. Now, Butler does have an opportunity, I think, to maybe contend. I don't know if you consider him a forward these days or whatever the case is. But yeah, not only do I think Jason Tatum is going to be on the team, I think he's going to be a starter when it's all said and done. The second guy, we mentioned him a lot, so I'm not going to waste too much time on him. Luka Doncic, I'm not mad at Ja Morant being in the All-Star game. I think he deserves it. That would have been my pick. The West, outside of Andrew Wiggins, I'm okay with how it's structured, with who's in there. No arguments really. But Luka's going 29-99. Okay, he's nearly averaging a triple-double, and they're actually winning games. You understand me? So it's not like, the whole Westbrook scenario. Okay, he's actually playing well. They're 8-2 in their last 10 games. I'm sorry, no, they're 7-3. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but they're probably going to be 8-2 by after tonight. So yeah, it's got to be Luka, and Jason Tatum will be an NBA a starter this year when he replaces Kevin Durant.
Yeah, once again, both really, really solid picks. For me, I'm doubling down. If you haven't met me outside of the show, you'd probably think, based off of this show, that I'm a Chicago Bulls fan, but I'm doubling down on my Zach Levine take. I definitely think he should have been named a starter. There you go, a starter in the Eastern Conference, averaging 24.9 points, 4.8 rebounds, 4.3 assists per game. He's shooting almost 50% from the field. He's shooting almost 40% from deep. His statistics are all-star starter worthy, and he's also shooting at a higher effective field goal percentage than Trae Young. His 56.3% from effective field goal percentage shots versus Trae Young's 52.3%. And the one point that I want to reiterate that I made before was that Levine is playing alongside a really, really good shooter. Possibly, I know Gary talked about this, DeMar DeRozan is probably the best mid-range shooter in the NBA today, I would say, at least. And he's also averaging 26.4 points per game. So you're looking at that. That's 26 points a game you have to take off the board. Think about the number of shots that you have to take and the shots that you're not taking if you're Zach Levine, and you're still averaging almost 25 points a game. And then you look at what Trae Young's doing, for example. His next man up is John Collins, and, Collins shoots 16.9 points per game, which is just, it's basically 10 points less than what DeRozan's putting up. So look at where each shooter is surrounded, but look at who's surrounding them. Look at the number of games that each team is winning. I'm doubling down on my take on Zach LaVine in the East, and I'm, sort of branching off from what Gary said. And he talked about this earlier where he said, the top teams in the conference have to have a starter. And I thought this was bonkers that both Devin Booker and my choice, Chris Paul, wasn't elected as a starter. I get why he wasn't a starter, but this man has to be on an all-star team, because I'll say it right now, and we can talk about this in a different show because I know this can get hot and heavy. Chris Paul is probably one of the 3 to 5 greatest point guards in NBA history, I would say. And the Suns are an NBA best 40-9 this season. The fact that there's no all-star starters is absolutely bonkers to me. He's averaging 14.8 points per game, so that's probably why he wasn't a starter. That's a career low for Chris Paul. But look at the other side of it. He's averaging 10.3 assists per game. That's the highest since the year 2013, way back in the day when he was on the Los Angeles Clippers with that DeAndre Jordan, Blake Griffin type of team. And for someone that's been named an all-star in each of the last 2 seasons, there's no reason to think that Chris Paul won't be an all-star this season, especially when he has his buddy LeBron James drafting for one of the respective teams. That's going to be an early pick among the reservations. So that's probably where I'm going. I'm going Zach LaVine in the East. I'm going Chris Paul, one of the 3 to 5 greatest point guards of all time, over in the Western Conference.
LeBron's got that banana boat connection. He's
He
gonna
does have
hook up
been.
Chris
Yeah, for all
Paul.
we know, Carmelo Anthony is probably coming behind it too.
Yeah, Carmelo
Yeah.
Anthony, Dwayne Wade. He's coming out of
Yeah.
retirement, selling
Here
his
for
stake
it.
in the Utah Jazz. He's gonna be at that All-Star game. We're gonna give him another spot.
Yeah. But yeah, listen, this is the All-Star
Yep.
game is going to be interesting. I'm not a big fan of the All-Star game. I know other people are. I know other people tend to just stay away from it. I'm probably gonna, as an NBA fan, I'm gonna watch. If I got nothing going on, why not watch it? You never know what's gonna happen. I thought last year's was sort of corny though, with John Morant and Zion Williamson, everyone just letting them do dunks, or like we all needed to see Zion, do a few dunks. But the fact that they just kept missing over and over again, and I'm like, okay, now we just need to get this game over with. Now it's just getting to the point where it's almost cringy. But teams are going to be looking past the All-Star game. They're going to be looking at the NBA trade deadline, which is scheduled for February 10th. I know we're going to have a lot of excitement going towards that, perhaps some content. I know I'm putting together an NBA trade deadline tracker to go out towards that deadline. That way we can keep up with all the news. But I'm going to ask you guys this. We're going to be talking about players that need to be moved by the trade deadline. So, Isaiah, talk to me about, what's going on in the NBA. What do you think needs to happen? What team needs to be active at the trade deadline to be considered a success?
This is what you guys were waiting for.
Bing bong.
This was it. This was it. Okay, I've been very quiet on my Knicks. Early on, I talked a whole lot. Not that much. It was all justified.
I was like, have you been quiet?
I've been avoiding this topic a little bit.
That's
okay?
fair. That's fair.
You talk about a player. That was what we were talking about. Like one player that should be moved. And no, you're going to lump all these guys together. They all got to go. And for different reasons, okay? I'm going to my Knicks. I'm just going to name off a couple of guys. We need to be super active. I'm not saying we got to be buyers, but we have to be thinking about next season because this season's a wash. I don't even want to make the playoffs this year. We know we're not going to win anything. I don't want to be a first-round exit team. I'm a Yankee fan. We're not used to that. If we're going to make the playoffs, I want to be in it at least to get to the second round, at least get a little bit of an improvement. I don't want to be in the playing game, man. Give us a top draft pick. We acquired Cam Reddish, and we're not even playing the guy. But I'm going to go with, of course, Kemba Walker. I don't know who could really use him at this point. I mean, he does have something in there. On the right team, he could be a little, a valuable asset. He's only getting paid $8 million a year, so he should be a bargain. I'm not gonna go hard on Kemba Walker. A lot of it was us as fans just expecting a little too much. I mean, he signed 2 years, $16 million deal. Like he's played up to that kind of contract, that kind of expectation. It was just that little thing in the back of my head, like, damn, but what if he could pull out the old Kemba? Just like I did the same thing with Derrick Rose when he came the first time around from Chicago. So not coming at Kemba, but it's just with his age, his contract, it's expendable. We need to head into another direction. So no Kemba Walker slander like that. Evan Fournier. I mean, if we could play the Boston Celtics every single game, then this guy would be an MVP right now, no question about it. And again, I'm not going to come hard on him because he's the system hasn't really thrived. They're trying to make Evan Fournier out to be like a volume shooter, and he's just not that guy. He's a good spot up shooter. He can make a couple 3 points. He can get hot, scorching hot, but he's not Steph Curry. He's not Klay Thompson. He's Alec Burks. He's Reggie Bullock. That's who he is. Okay, so and you signed him at $80 million deal. So before because I do think he could thrive in certain situations. In a certain system, he can knock down a couple of big threes. I mean, hey, the Lakers could probably use that guy. I'm, just trying to leverage a little. Maybe talk to your connections over there in LA, Deb, please. And then of course Mitchell Robinson. That's another guy. Okay, not about the talent. The guy is really good. He's had a hard time staying healthy, but you see him. He's able to put up numbers. I hear that he's working on his shooting a little bit, so he has a real future in this league. Unfortunately, it's just with his contract coming to a close. He's likely not a part of the Knicks' future just because of the money he's probably going to look for. And they just locked up Nerlens Noel, who hasn't been able to stay healthy. That's another conversation. I would say he's a trade option too, but nobody's going to want him. But Mitchell Robinson, somebody that you got to get value for. You can't just let him walk. Not when you're the Knicks. You need to look towards next year. And then finally, the big one, Julius Randle. Okay. And look, I want to be easy because I've been easy on Julius Randle, man. He's the reason why I even care about these losses, okay? Because prior to last season, I was just used to it. I was numb to the pain. You know, I don't even really watch football like that. I'm a Jets fan. I'm just used to the losses. I'm used to it. But he gave me a little bit of an ounce of hope just to crush me a little bit. And it's not so much him, but a lot of it is him, to be honest. So he's going to get, out of the guys I mentioned, he gets a little bit more of the blame. Last year, he just, you know, he over exceeded his expectations. He played like a star. This year, he's trying to still be that guy, and he just isn't that guy. You know, he's trying to play like Carmelo Anthony in his prime, you know, carrying the ball. Like, you're just not that guy, pal. Okay, I hate that trend and saying, but I'm just saying, you're not that guy. Thank you for bringing us back to relevancy. But with all the things that are going on, I even wrote that article, like, it has nothing to do with him, you know, coming after the fans, the thumbs down thing. He gave a New York response to a New York reaction. He was frustrated. I get it. I will appreciate everything Randle has done for us, but he doesn't want to be there. He doesn't want to be there. You could just see it on his face. I mean, maybe not you guys. You guys, who watches the Knicks this year? Me, I still do. He does not want to be there. You can't just have these guys stick around. It's time to build around RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett is that guy. And it's time. That's time. I'm done.
This man said RJ Barrett is that guy.
It's like when I used to say Justice Winslow was that guy.
Yeah, it's funny that
Hey man, there was a time and a place we were going crazy for Rook One.
Yeah, it's funny that Isaiah says this too about Julius Randle, because I remember as a Lakers fan, it feels just like a few years ago that Randle was over on the Lakers and he gave Lakers fans hope, and he definitely crushed us a bit, you know, back when he was on the team with, you know, Brandon Ingram and Nick Young and all those guys. So yeah, I feel your pain, Isaiah, especially after the season the Knicks have been having. It's interesting that you see him as sellers right here. Gary, talk me through what you're sort of seeing, because we were talking about this before the show. You might have a trade put together that might be helping out a few different teams.
Ladies and gentlemen, when the tides clash from the two powerhouses on the East and West Coast, you have a blockbuster trade that includes the man of the hour in a lot of Lakers fans' eyes. Not LeBron James, because that would be absolutely absurd, but the man himself, Russell Westbrook. I love Westbrook. I am one of those guys who has always loved his ferocity, his power. Yeah, the shooting woes were always upsetting, but I'm a guy who loves the competitiveness, the spirit, the toughness. He's a great leader, which is exactly what a team like the New York Knicks need. So for Russell Westbrook and a 2025 first-round pick that is lottery protected, I have the Lakers receiving Evan Fournier, Kemba Walker, and Alec Burks. And yes, the contracts match. Westbrook is known for one thing, and I don't, you know, after what Isaiah said, this is a little bit like redundant in my thing. I was thinking, if Westbrook joins this team, what say the Knicks couldn't make like a, you know, a pretty decent, like we're in the first round playoffs kind of thing. He's known for dragging those teams to the playoffs. And the last thing that Knicks fans in like that are actually buying season tickets is to see a losing team. Westbrook's going to drag this team to the playoffs if they're able to. And the Knicks have more talent than some other teams he's actually been on. The Wizards last year, he took them to the playoffs, and Julius Randle is so much better than anybody that the Wizards could have put on the floor next to Russell Westbrook. And yes, I did include Bradley Beal in that because honestly, they didn't fit too well together. Letting Westbrook run the offense with him and RJ Barrett by his side would be great. You got Mitchell Robinson when he's healthy to throw in lobs. And for LA, for the Lakers, you get three, or at least two. I don't know how Kemba's doing this year, but you get three pretty good shooters, or two pretty good shooters. Evan Fournier, Alec Burks, who say they can't spot up in the corner and catch some LeBron James passes across the post to get some threes. That's really all that the Lakers need at this point, is some dudes to knock down some shots. Yeah, of course, they're having pretty okay season in all things considered when you got the injuries. Yeah, a lot of Lakers fans are like, oh my God, I can't believe we aren't, the #1 seed. And I even picked them to make the finals this year. But you go look at that team now and it's like, who's shooting the ball on this team other than LeBron and Wayne Ellington? I'm sorry. But Wayne Ellington isn't the answer. You need some more shooting on that team. And I feel like with the Russell Westbrook problem that the Lakers are having at the moment, and Evan Fournier, Alec Burks duo, at least on that end of the wing, would be okay. Add a Kemba Walker in there to take some of the ball handling responsibilities away from LeBron James. He's old. He needs a little bit of rest. He's playing center, for goodness sakes. I mean, the Lakers are at a pretty tough spot when it comes to having some shooting on the outside wing. And I'm ready to hear what you have to say about this one, Devin, because another one I've got is a Pacers trade for Russell Westbrook, Talen Horton-Tucker, and a first-round pick for Karis LeVert, Miles Turner, and Jeremy Lamb. I know that doesn't move the needle all that much, but if AD is really content on playing the 4, that's a great place to start with Miles Turner. Great shot blocking 5, can space the floor as well. Giving LeBron James some space in the paint, someone that he can pass out to, and then on the other end, someone that can protect the paint at a pretty good level. Karis LeVert, just another ball handler that can create some shots, and Jeremy Lamb, a great shooter. And of course, the reason they would even do this for the Pacers is to get Talen Horton-Tucker, who hasn't been incredible this year. He's actually been pretty disappointing, but potential for the Pacers is there. And if there's one thing the Pacers need is someone that has some ability to make it in at least a decent spot in this league. They're not going to get any free agents. They have a pretty decent drafting record, actually. Kevin Pritchard's done a great job over there, getting guys like Chris Duarte. Of course, they draft Paul George right after they get an all-star in oh my goodness, I can't remember his name now. Danny Granger. Wow, that's a call from the past. But they're pretty good at drafting. They've got Sabonis. They've got guys who I might have slandered in the past, but are actually pretty decent players in the NBA. If you get Talen Horton-Tucker on that, I mean, who knows? Maybe he just needs the space away from a LeBron James team, which we've seen a ton of rookies in the past with LeBron, second-year players who don't know what they're really doing on that end of the court, and then they go to another situation like Lonzo, like Julius Randle, like Brandon Ingram, guys who, once they're given the space, can actually thrive. So, yeah, and for the Pacers, it's an absolutely insane, crazy trade to even want Russell Westbrook. Would they do it? No, but it's fun. It would be fun. I mean, Pacers need to sell season tickets, right? They need to sell tickets. And I'm sorry, but I'm not who do they got on the docket? Where, you look at the tickets, you get the tickets at the end of the game or the beginning of the game, and you see the little guy. Who are they marketing? They're marketing Domantas Sabonis, or what would look better? Russell Westbrook on there.
All right.
So Gary, hold on. So Gary just walked through about,
I'm ready for this.
He just walked through 10,000 different things, and ever since he brought up the word Knicks, I seen the look on Isaiah's face because he wants to talk about this. Let's take it step by step here.
Sure.
So I recently watched a Lakers game in which they played on the road against the Charlotte Hornets, and I thought to myself, I'm like, the Lakers are huge underdogs here. They don't have Anthony Davis. They don't have LeBron James. This is the starting 5 that they put together: Russell Westbrook, Wayne Ellington, Stanley Johnson, Avery Bradley, and DeAndre Jordan. That's a starting 5 right there. And I'll tell you right now, I turned that game off after 5. I didn't even watch the game. I watched it for 5 minutes. The Hornets went on a 11-13-2 run or something crazy like that. And I said, there's no hope for this team. This is the worst team I've seen from the Los Angeles Lakers in years. Even in the year where LeBron was constantly hurt, the Lakers had to rely on other young players. I think this team might be worse when they're not at their full strength. It is. Let me throw this to you. Do you even? I wouldn't wish Russell Westbrook on my worst enemy. He's right next to Kyle Kuzma on my dog water list right now. Do you even want Russell Westbrook? Can I give you you can give us half? I'll pay you to take Russell Westbrook. Do you want him and his 210 turnovers, no matter what the cost is, or are you seeing this from a different light?
I cringe to see Russell Westbrook and Julius Randle on the same team. Now, I will say this. Gary, like at first, I was a little bit like, okay, I kind of like the package. If we could get Westbrook for that package, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's just something
You
for
keep
this
your best
year.
two players.
Yeah, no. Yeah,
Say
no,
the package. You said Evan Fournier, Alec Burks, and who else?
Kemba Walker.
I mean, we get rid of Evan Fournier's contract, so if it's that trade,
yeah,
I kind of like it. But like you're like, if this was math, like, you know, your end game was correct, like your work was right and everything, but you made a typo when you answered the question. Like, you're right, we need a leader, we need to make an offer, but it ain't Russell Westbrook. But for that offer, I might take it. And by the way, we just gotta get appreciation for how this man said Wayne Ellington.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of the Golden Arm. We had him down here in Miami. Wayne Ellington, we see it right up on the screen. Wayne Ellington, 2 question marks and an exclamation point. Wayne Ellington's a good shooter. That's where the conversation ends. That's it.
Yeah,
he's not playing any defense. He can shoot. I'm not quite sure what he's shooting this year. I guarantee it's probably in the high 30s because he's not bad. He had 200 threes with the Heat a couple of years ago, shooting over 40%. You know, but sorry, Frank Vogel isn't Eric Spoelstra. He's not getting the best out of that guy. So you know.
Yeah, Ellington this year averages under 20 minutes a game, but during that time, puts up about 6 points a game on 40% shooting from the field, almost 40% from 3-point range, but that's about it. Nothing really stands out about his game because he doesn't really get the minutes when the Lakers are at full strength, which is understandable right now.
Oh yeah, he's not great. I mean, he's not good, but you know, he could shoot. That's what you need around LeBron. So you add Evan Fournier next to LeBron, you add Alec Burks, you add Kemba, people that can actually put a ball in a basket from a good distance away. That's how LeBron James teams thrive. Let's not forget that LeBron brought the Cavs to the NBA Finals with Kyle Korver as a starting shooting guard on the team who plays no defense.
So, we're not going to start slandering one of the best 3-point shooters of all time right there.
He's one of the greatest 3-point shooters of all time. Doesn't mean that he couldn't guard a barn door. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
I can probably drop him off. He saw my shots.
Yeah. So, what Gary is pointing out is really interesting because it ties into what I was going to say. Because I'm all in on the Pacers being sellers at this trade deadline. Every report that I've seen has been basically that the Pacers are willing to blow up the whole entire roster in order to receive more draft picks in the future. They're not really concerned about winning right now. They're 18-33 to start this season. Some of the names that we talked about were Sabonis. We talked about Miles Turner. We talked about LeVert. But the Pacers are extremely high on their asking prices. I think that they are in this fantasy world. From what I have seen so far, and this is where it gets very interesting because I think, Gary, you're going to have to remind me what the package you said was for. You said THT and a first-round pick for Turner?
Yeah, it was a Westbrook, Tucker, Taylor Norton Tucker, 2025 first-round pick for LeVert, Turner, and Lamb.
Yes. So what's interesting is the last report that I saw as of today was that the Pacers are holding out on either receiving 2 first-round picks for Miles Turner or they want a young, promising player and a first-round pick. So if you're thinking young, promising player, one of the most young, promising players, if we're talking about just pure prospects who haven't developed fully, is Taylor Tucker. I don't know if the Lakers would even receive, Jeremy Lamb and who was the last piece? Say it one more time.
Karis LeVert. That's really more to make the contracts work.
Yeah.
They're not getting Russell Westbrook without. I mean, of course, you have to match the salaries in the NBA. You're not just trading $44 million a year for, nothing. You have to match those salaries. And LeVert's been a little hurt. He hasn't played up to expectations as much as Pacers fans would have wanted him to. Jeremy Lamb's just kind of a throw-in as a shooter who needs, kind of a resurgence in this league. He hasn't really lived up to he was one of the key integral trade pieces when the Rockets traded for James Harden, if I remember correctly. So, you got a guy who's gone that far back who really hasn't lived up to what he can be. It's more so that Jeremy Lamb was just more so of a salary filler and a shooter. You need a shooter, you need a salary filler. Throw him in there.
Right.
He's not really moving the needle either way.
And it's interesting. So the last report that I saw on Sabonis too was that the Pacers want a Nikola Vucevic type of deal I don't know if you guys remember this, but when the Bulls and the Magic made their trade at the time, the Magic received Wendell Carter Jr., Otto Porter Jr., and 2 first-round picks for Vujicic. And I don't know if there's going to be a team that gives up 2 firsts plus 2 starting caliber players for Sabonis. As good as Sabonis is when it comes to rebounds, scoring in the paint, all of that fun stuff. Sabonis is, unless they lower that asking price, I don't know if Sabonis is going to be in the move before February 10th. Once again, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but that's a really, really high asking price. I think Turner's price alone of 2 firsts or a young promising player and a first is also very high. Obviously, I think as we get closer to the deadline, it's going to be sort of declining a little bit on the asking price. I don't know if you guys saw this, and I don't even have this in my notes, but I remember reading this about a week ago, was that the Houston Rockets were actually a suitor. We're talking about Russell Westbrook here, that the Houston Rockets were actually willing to take back on Russell Westbrook on their roster, and they just want to get rid of John Wall. So they were talking about John Wall just straight up to the Lakers in exchange for Russell Westbrook. If you're telling me I got the choice between either John Wall or I can have Kemba, Evan Fournier, and Alec Burks, I'm not gonna lie. I love John Wall. He hasn't played basketball in a very, very long time. But I know at one point Kemba Walker was benched by Tom Thibodeau because he didn't fit in that starting rotation. I've seen Fournier do very, very well against the Boston Celtics. And I've seen him play at very, very low levels against other teams. You don't know what you're going to get with Alec Burks. You can get over 20 points a game, but you can also get a stat sheet that tells you he's scoring 6 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists in a single game. So it's
He'll
interesting.
Have some Tony Snell 0-0s.
Yeah. So yeah, that's interesting. I think all are perfect scenarios. Trust me, as a Lakers fan, I'd love to get Russell Westbrook out of here, get it back to the good old days where it was just LeBron and AD running the floor and 3 other guys. If I can don't get me wrong, if I can get Kemba Walker on the team and we can tell him to just sit on the bench for a little bit like he was doing for the Knicks for that stretch of time, I'm okay with that too. I just don't want a guy that has 210 turnovers this season.
Would you rather have John Wall or Russell Westbrook? As a Lakers fan, would you rather? I mean, what? I know we haven't seen John Wall in a while, and he's been kind of like just chilling in Houston.
Yeah,
but,
I think as a Lakers fan, I would rather. I'm talking about. I need somebody that's going to complement the style of LeBron James, and I think I said this before the season even started, is that they don't complement each other's games because both are so obsessed with stat chasing and this and that. And the usage is just too high. One of the first stats that I brought up when we first started the show was that they had 2 of the 5 highest usage rates in NBA history. And so I'm looking at it from a complimentary standpoint. It's going to sound crazy. I'd rather have John Wall than Russell Westbrook. I genuinely would as a Lakers fan.
You're not crazy. I agree.
Yeah.
I 100% agree.
We haven't seen him play in a while. I mean, he seems like he's back and healthy, but he just hasn't been playing because he's looking for the right opportunity. I know he's been close to coming back a few different times. But yeah, it's going to be February 10th. It's going to be a very important day. And I know we're going to talk behind the scenes about whether we want to do a live reaction that day. Would be pretty cool as we're leading into the trade deadline. We're going to have to talk about that behind the scenes. But I think it's going to be a very active day because there's a lot of teams that I think are going to be trying to sell, especially on the day of that deadline.
I saw a trade proposal, just like a thought for Russell Westbrook for a couple of players on the Spurs. Unless we want Pop to retire tomorrow and have a heart attack on the court, I don't think that's a great idea. Greg Popovich, one of the legends of this game, I feel like if he saw Russell Westbrook shoot a mid-range contested 2 that bounces off the backboard like we've seen this season, he might quit. He might retire mid-game, like on some who's the Bills cornerback who did that mid-game? Went in at halftime.
Like halftime, yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember his name right now, but he went in at halftime and he was like, "Yeah, I retire. I'm done. I'm halfway home at this point." Love Pop. I don't want to see that happen to him. Let's not get Russ on the Spurs for any reason.
Yeah, it was Vontae Davis, by the way.
That's it. That's right, Vontae Davis. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I mean, the only guy that I would rather not have the Russell Westbrook is Kyle Kuzma. But that's a discussion for a different
come on.
time.
Are you sure?
We
Like,
are
Actually,
we
at
on a
this
10
point, I don't
are we on
know
a 10
which
episode
I'd rather
streak?
have. Yeah.
Are we
I
on
don't
a 10 episode streak of bringing up Kyle Kuzma?
Yeah, I mean,
We might be.
every time Isaiah brings up RJ Barrett, I have to bring up Kyle Kuzma. We're gonna see who keeps
Wait
the
a
long
minute.
streak going.
Why is that? Why is that? Listen, RJ Barrett is
Oh,
the
man.
future of the Knicks, the future of the NBA. You
That
understand?
future looks like a 9th seed.
Yeah, definitely.
Ooh.
But
Maybe
listen,
this
guys,
year. Maybe this year.
Maybe that. Yeah, you know what? He might do something.
they
I'm
trade-
not giving him a, but like,
Yeah.
But just know that's
Yeah.
not the goal this year. I don't care anymore. I give up on. Anyway, that's besides the point. That's besides the
well,
you heard it here first. Knicks fans have given up.
Yep. So listen, we're
this year.
10 episodes in the book now. Next episode will be number 11. There's going to be more details coming out about the NBA All-Star reserves. We're going to be talking more about the NBA trade deadline. We can go in a bunch of different directions with that next show, which is going to be really exciting. So make sure you're staying tuned every single Monday over here at the Athletes Hub. And yeah, with that, we will see you guys next week. Thanks for joining us.
See you guys.